Ladies and gentlemen, the drift truck is back. And in this video, we are going to be getting it running and driving on the street. We're gonna get it street legal, which means we have to completely wire the entire truck. The entire chassis harness has to be wired. It needs things like a door. It needs an interior with carpet, and it needs just a lot of other little things. So without any further ado, let's get started. The main thing that this truck has been waiting for is the wiring. And the reason why we've waited for that is because I wanted to get a PDM, which is a power distribution module. A PDM is pretty much a solid state relay box. Instead of having relays that have 4 wires going to them and then wires going throughout the entire truck, it's just all built into a little computer device. It's one big power wire, one big ground wire, and that's it. You can program all the inputs and outputs, and it makes it very smart, very modern. It'll allow us to wire up the headlights, the turn signals, the brake lights, all the things that this thing needs to be street legal. Another thing for the wiring is a new gauge cluster, because currently it has the stock gauge cluster, and the only thing that works is the tachometer. We have a battery that we have to mount, a nice small little race car battery, and so the first thing we really have to do is undo all of the wiring. Rip out all of the stuff over in that corner. We'll probably keep the leads going to the front and the rear of the truck, because mine as well, but everything else is definitely going to get changed and chopped. Now before we do that, we're also adding a few sensors. Let's just go ahead and do that first. So we've got a pressure gauge for oil pressure. Then we have a temp sensor for, well, it's for water temp. I don't really know if I'm gonna use this or what I'll use it for, but it's there. Now for this oil pressure, we're also going to be getting rid of this really long oil line that's a loop and is kind of kinking and getting really close to the headers. So it's gonna be a little hard AN line right there. Sensor is going to go right here, run up into the wiring harness right about there. There's our new and improved oil line with the sensor plugged into it. So now we have to wire it up into one of these bad boys. I have things just temporarily wired up here just to check. I have it set up in the ECU here. I'm gonna go ahead and crank this bad boy over, see if we get any oil pressure. Oh yeah. Now, I'm just going to finalize this wiring. All right, we're gonna see if I can start this thing and yeah, look at the oil pressure. No leaks, that's good. 90 PSI, that's pretty wild. So I made a new calibration table instead of using one of the built-in ones. The built-in ones might have been right, but let's see. All right, well, at least we know that works. Oil pressure sensors added, now we can start putting everything together, and so therefore we have to remove all of this wiring. So all that mess has been removed. We still have the O2 sensor wiring and the water pump for the front wiring in here, and we'll tap into that for the rest. And then we got the fuel pump and the fans for the back. I think the next step before we do anything else is mounting the battery and then kind of planning out the routing for all of the wiring, which I'm not great at, but I'm gonna give it my best shot. Before I figure out where I want to put the battery, I'm going to put the dash in, and so we can kind of plan all of that stuff out. So I don't want to mount the battery and then, oops, the dash actually has to go there. There we go. So my plan was to put the PDM and all of the fuse boxes and wiring and stuff right here. Sure enough, it lines up perfectly with this bar. So I can make a little thing that comes off the bar for all that right there. And then we will put the keypad for the PDM you know, right here. And then obviously dash is gonna go there. We'll have the AFR gauge in the dash as well. And then ignition and start button over there on the left. Battery could definitely go back there. So now we can remove this and get to work. I'm gonna take some pictures just in case if I forget. Oh, it's in the right spot, but not long enough. At least that part isn't long enough. This is why you make test pieces out of thin, cheap material. No! That bumped that. Ah! So there is the test mount, just like that. And then there will be, and then I'll make a strap that has hooks and comes and screws in. I do have to drill some holes and add some rivet nuts on the one side, but no worries. Before we do that, we're gonna go ahead and make this piece again out of some thicker material. Obviously, since this is a lightweight race truck, I'm gonna make it out of some aluminum. I got the battery mount in there and it's nice and secure. Went ahead and drilled the rivet nuts and put those in. Now I'm just gonna go ahead, pull this out, weld up the aluminum bracket, and then make the top piece, and that will be all good to go. So the battery mount is done, it's nice and secure. Now we're gonna work on the plate that holds everything else. The fuse boxes, the PDM, the cutoff switch, and it's gonna go right here, literally from there all the way up to there. But let me take a moment to thank this video sponsor, Mudwater. Mudwater is a Healthy Habits brand best known for its popular coffee alternative. Instead of just having a boatload of caffeine, Mudwater has ingredients that were each added for a purpose. It has 4 functional mushrooms, lion's mane for focus and to combat brain fog, cordyceps to promote natural energy, and both chaga and reishi to support a healthy immune system. It's got cacao and chai, which does add a little bit of caffeine, but it also gives Mudwater its amazing flavor. And that flavor is also helped by cinnamon, turmeric, and salt. It's also Whole30 approved, 100% USDA certified organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan, and kosher. Now the awesome thing about Mudwater, unlike coffee, it doesn't give you an energy boost and then a big energy crash. You don't get the jitters like you do when you drink a highly caffeinated drink, just smooth and steady. And personally, I love drinking my Mudwater after I get home from work, because at that point I want some energy, but I don't want caffeine because caffeine's gonna keep me up. I also really like that I can get crafty with Mudwater. Personally, my favorite way to enjoy Mudwater is to take your Mudwater, mix it up with some hot water, then you add some of Mudwater's creamer. It's got coconut milk and MCT oil in it, which gives it a nice texture and a really nice flavor. I also add some brown sugar or some honey just to make it a little bit sweet, nothing crazy. Mix all of that up, and then I pour it over ice and add a little bit of oat milk on top. It's delicious, it's refreshing, and I'm kind of craving it right now. And if you're like me and you're craving it right now, you want to try it out, Mudwater is hooking you guys up with a nice discount. If you go to mudwater.com/Gingium, you can get 15% off and a free frother. Yet again, that is mudwater.com/Gingium for 15% off and a free frother. I'll have links down in the description and up there in the cards. Thank you so much to Mudwater for sponsoring this video. Ideally, I would have everything I possibly need, and I'd plan it all out, and I would perfectly design and cut a plate that fit everything. Fortunately, I don't have everything. I don't have the PDM yet. I don't have anything else. So we're cutting out a massive plate, and we're gonna have to get old school, and we'll probably modify it with the angle grinder, with the drill, but better to start big and to remove material than to have to add material, although I can do that too. So. Big box. Big box go brr. Now we gotta mount big box. Oh, that's a pretty good weld right there. Whew. So now we're gonna use that bolt hole and that one over there. All right, we got our massive plate in there. Doesn't affect foot room. No, you're totally fine. It looks so big, it looks like you're not gonna be able to put your knees, but you sit so much farther back, that doesn't matter. All right, we're gonna put the dash in, see how that fits around it. There we go. It's pretty awesome how well it lines up with everything. It perfectly fits in this space. And so can you see it? It lines up with the bottom of the dash almost exactly. And then it mounts down there, mounts over there to the dash and the roll bar. Nothing there now, and then eventually you open it up, fuse boxes, cutoff switch, PDM. What I'm gonna go and do is I'm gonna actually draw out the square of like easily being able to reach so that we mount the things that we want to be able to reach in that square. This is the square we marked out that we can reach through the glove box. So now we can start actually mounting things. I went ahead and kind of wired up this fuse box. This is only going to be used for some very small, low power stuff that is switched 12 volt and constant 12 volt. So things like interior lights, which we want to just always have on when the door opens, or things like the ignition for the ECU and the PDM to turn on. That's what is in here. And so because we have this thing, I was able to delete this old fuse box. It's gonna be over here, kind of like so. Right next to it will be the cutoff switch right in the middle, easiest to access. And then over here, where there's less area where we can reach, we'll put the PDM. We won't really need to access the PDM once it's in there, but we will be able to want to see the, on the top left corner, there's some like indicators, and that will be visible. And then all the wiring will come up from below. We're probably gonna trim this down a bit, and then we'll also have the positive and negative battery posts somewhere on this thing here. And so while we wait for the PDM and whatnot, I'm gonna get started with mounting this and this. got the start of our wiring all in here. Now, if I do this, I turn on power to the whole system. If I touch this white one, I should hear a relay click. Yep, boom, nice, very good, very good. I should have, yeah, I need a multimeter. 12 volt to here and here. I should have 12 volts on this. Hello? Oh wait, no, there's no fuses in there. Okay, 12 volts here. Yep, right there, and right there, and then nothing there. But if I click this relay, then I should have it there. And sure enough, I do. Okay, so everything's working. Still waiting on the PDM. That's fine. We still have other stuff we can do. We're gonna go ahead and wire some of these things up. 2 red wires are gonna be going to the ECU. This plug down here. We have to wire in a switch for ignition, which will turn on the switch 12 volt, and then feed power to the gauge cluster and the PDM. And that's pretty much all we're gonna do for now. I should be able to turn that on, then, let's see. Oh wait, this needs to be grounded. Okay, I missed one thing. And turn the battery on, then we can hit the ignition. Okay, I like the sound of that. I heard the ECU turn on. Yeah, that sounds right. And then I should be able to, ooh. Yeah, okay. That does not have enough power. I put a bigger fuse in there, and now that works. So 10 amp fuse, that should be fine, because it's just for the starter relay. Hopefully that holds. So that means we have successfully powered up the ECU, the starter, the engine, all that's ready to go. And now all we have to do is get the PDM and wire up all of the accessories. This right here is the Link Razor PDM. I got this PDM because, well, simply, it's the smallest and cheapest PDM, name brand PDM on the market. It's got 12 outputs, so this thing can control 12 different things, 4 25 amp things, and then 8 amp things, I believe was the number. And this thing is heavy. It weighs like 2-3 pounds, and it's so small. Really smaller than my hand. So all of the relays and fuses are built into this thing. It's like a little computer. You can plug into it and tune it and program it. And then to control it, we have the keypad. Okay, listen to this, listen to this. Ooh, can you hear that? First thing is to mount this and then give it a main positive and negative. And then we gotta do a lot of wiring through this plug. PDM is mounted and has the main battery cables going to it. I just checked for voltage and we're all good there. So now we're gonna start actually wiring that and the keypad up. To turn on, it really just needs switched 12 volt. So we're gonna go ahead and start with that. That's one of these red wires down here. Ooh, baby. Okay, just before I actually hook anything up, do that. I need some fuses though, actually. That. Now we see, not off to a great start here. Nah, I was using a blown fuse. Okay. Phew, I was like, bro, this makes 0 sense. Not blown here. Nice. Boom. This in too. Now, I'm gonna hit the ignition switch. Both those should light up, I feel like. Oh yes, that is lighting up. This is not doing anything. Okay, good news is I got it to work. Turns out the ground was just bad. Oh, that's sick. So when you push the button, it activates the one. So now we can kind of start actually wiring it. And the nice thing is that, yeah, we're gonna try to put the pins where we want them to, but we can, you know, program everything. So If you don't get it perfect, it's okay. Fun, fun, fun. One of the first things I'm gonna go and wire up is this right here, which is the fuel pump. One of these is the fuel pump. I gotta figure out which one. As soon as I get the fuel pump wired up, we could actually try to start this and see if everything's working, which would be exciting. So let's do that first, I think. Turn it on. And it works just like that. That's so cool. So cool. Okay. So I gotta do the other fuel pump and then radiator fans and water pump going to the back. Thankfully, since I already made the lead harness, it's just, I'm all just doing stuff right here. So that is all wired up now, not the entire PDM, just the stuff going to the back. And it comes down here to a nice little Deutsch plug. So, boom, boom, awesome startup sequence, fuel pump, fans, and water pump. But we're at a good stopping point to kind of try to see if this thing will run. There's no reason why it shouldn't, but you never know. The one thing I do want to do before trying to start it is get a gauge cluster in here, because I don't got that. And so, let me show you this 1 gauge cluster. And actually, I'm just gonna go and jump right into it and mount it into the stock cluster. Then I'll show it to you. So we got the 1 gauge screen mounted in the factory cluster. For the finished product, these will be powder coated wrinkle black. This sits on top of it as well. Nice and factory looking. I even managed to get the factory clock to stay in there and work. So that's gonna be cool. For one, just having a clock will be nice. And then secondly, it looks OEM. They have a bunch of different preset screens that you can scroll through. You can modify the screen if you want. You can set up sensors, do diagnostics, change the brightness, all sorts of stuff. Now right now, obviously nothing's working because this is just hooked up outside of the car, but they should all work. Everything should be reading nicely. It's got a standalone speed sensor, so we'll have not only speed, but also an odometer. It keeps track of that. We'll have blinker inputs and outputs, which are gonna be sweet. In fact, let's actually test that. Oh, nice. That's a good blinker spot. Okay. So say indicator 1 is for lights. Let me go back to gauges. Try indicator 1 here. And sure enough, that's lights. That's what makes this setup so awesome. It's like a standalone gauge for everything that you could ever want. It can hook up to your car with OBD2, with CAN, or you can hardwire just sensors to it and it will work still. So it really makes it a perfect budget-friendly option for any sort of project car that you want a digital dash for. Now that we know that that fits and works outside of the car, we can start working on getting it inside of the car. So the first thing to do to actually get this thing wired up in the truck is to mount this and wire this up. This is what actually just controls everything. It's like the brains of the thing, and then it just plugs into the screen. I already cut out this little aluminum bracket that zip ties on. So let's zip tie this in and then wire it up. Hey, that and the clock. I'm now gonna set up the keypad with the buttons that I want, and then we can continue wiring up the truck and programming everything, making sure that the lights work and the blinkers blink, and then everything shows up on here as well. So I did get all the logos in here. So now our fuel pump turns on the fuel pump, fans, turn on the fans, water pump, there was nothing for water pump. Turns on that. This is gonna go ahead and turn on the intercooler pump down there. But anyway, we can go ahead and start actually wiring these things up. And I'm gonna start with the turn signals. Turn that ignition on. All right, and headlights. Does this running light work? Yeah, it does. Okay, so this bulb is out over here. Headlights, very nice, very nice. Right blinker's working, and the left blinker. Very nice. So that's all the front stuff then. That's everything on. Obviously the blinkers don't blink yet, and one of the daytime running lights is broken, but all the wires are ran up here. Now we can do the back. I went ahead and put some LED bulbs that are actually colored in there. So now blinkers are yellow, brakes are red. I got the blinkers to blink, so that's cool. They are bright, they are very bright. You can see hazards on the dash. Very cool. And we got the lights up here situated. Also, you may have noticed, so that's pretty sick. And so that's all the lights. Done. Completo. All right, I got these horns wired up now too. I think it's gonna be really fucking loud. Let's see. Oh no, it's perfect. Very nice. So I got the dash harness complete. Very simple, just the two speakers that get mounted in the dash, and then the harness for the radio. Now, technically, once we have the heaters and stuff in here, then that'll also be in here. But pretty much have all the plugs for all the speaker wires and the power and the ground and stuff. So we should be able to put the dash in, kind of place the radio in, plug it in, and see it work. We're also gonna see if this dash actually fits now, because I haven't tested it since all of this has gotten put in. Very basic look at what the finished product's gonna be like. Obviously, nothing's mounted, but you open this bad boy, turn the kill switch on. Yeah, that falls. Hop in, take the steering wheel down. Ding! Oh, that sounds nice. Then ignition on, a toto, that, oh, the entire thing lights up all at once. That's so sick. These speakers are so terrible. Obviously, two 4-inch speakers in the dash ain't gonna do much, but it's at least something for now. What we're probably gonna end up doing is building a custom center console with like some subwoofers and other speakers, and then maybe putting some subs underneath the seats or something, but that's not important right now. Point is that this works. So we only have a few things left. 3 things to be specific. Fuel level gauge, which is just one wire back to the fuel tank and then grounded through a bobber. Interior lights, which will be up on the roof and wired to door switches, so when the doors open, they turn on, just if the battery's connected. And then USB chargers, some USB ports for the dash. So that's just a switch 12 volt and a ground. So I'm gonna start with the fuel level. Just gotta run a wire to the back. So this is the bobber we have. It's a cool little bobber that just goes up and down instead of having that arm that swings, so it takes up less space. The only thing I want to do is go ahead and check to see the resistance through this at full and empty, so we can set it on the 1 gauge. So with the bobber all the way down, so empty, 242, move it all the way up, full, we are at 32. So that's how this thing measures how full. Doesn't seem very linear though. It's all stuck. So now the bobber is installed and wired up. I can turn on the gauge cluster, do sensor setup, fuel sensor, ohms full. Let's see, it was 240. Ohms empty, it was 30. So you can actually see already, it says current ohms 86, 26% fuel. I don't think that's quite right. The thing that I was noticing about that bobber is that it didn't seem very linear. So I think probably I should do this more at like 200, say 200. And then it will probably be a little bit higher. Yeah, see, this is good. And obviously it takes an average over a certain period of time so that as it's going around and bobbing up and down, it doesn't freak out. That's awesome. We got a fuel level gauge, boys. Hey, yo, yeah, damn. Doors open, doors closed. Doors open, doors closed. Open, close, open, close. Well, with that, all the wiring is in the truck, there and working. Got everything from the lights to the engine, all the accessories, it all works. Now, the one thing I do want to do is go ahead and start the truck, let it warm up, make sure the fans work with the new fan controller. Oh yeah, by the way, I added the new fan controller. Make sure none of the fuses blow or anything gets too hot or anything like that. Once that's good, then we have to tear all the wiring apart, wrap it, and then put it back in for good. So I'm gonna hop in here, turn on the fuel pump, and then crank the engine. Cold start isn't the greatest on this thing right now, but there we go. I'm gonna turn the lights on, all right? Make it look cool. Oh man, that's so disappointing. Turn on the, let's see, intercooler water pump too. Oil pressure's going down a little bit as it warms up. Coolant temp's going up. Right now, the only gauge on the 1 gauge that's working is RPM and fuel and volts. It's not actually overheating that bad. It just says it is. Sounds so good. So once the thermostat opens and this radiator starts to get hot, which it is starting, this Mishimoto PWM fan controller will slowly increase the speed of the fans and modulate it to keep the perfect coolant temperature. So instead of having the fans turn on and off, full blast, 0%, full blast, 0%, it'll keep it right at that perfect speed to keep coolant temperature. It's just better for the system, loads the alternator less, keeps a consistent temperature. I just have to dial in the settings. It's all manually controlled through this box, but once it's set up, it's good to go. So I just turned on there, but look, the fans are barely spinning. They're just barely spinning, and they're only drawing, oh, they're not even drawing an amp right now. So like that's the advantage of this, is it could keep the engine cool without drawing a crap ton of power. Then obviously once it starts getting hotter, it'll speed up. So like when we're at the track. That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, that's working. It's keeping it right at 190 degrees perfectly. Everything else is working. None of these wires are getting too hot. And so now we gotta take it all apart. Well, it's done. All the way to the taillights back here. Mishimoto fan controller, all nicely routed, clamped, zip tied to the tabs that we made on the frame. Man, I'm so glad we did that. It made tying up the wiring in the back and the front so much easier. Super happy with the way everything in here turned out. Lights are up there. This plate looks very, very clean, very happy with that. And then we just have one harness going underneath the dash with all of its plugs right in the nice correct spots. And then up here we have the wiring running along the inside of the fender, nice and secured. I know at the beginning of this video I said I wanted to get this thing street driving, but man, this wiring took way longer than I thought. I have probably about 80 hours of work just into this wiring, and this video is probably close to 40 minutes long, and so we're gonna end it here. All the wiring is done. In the next video, what we are going to do is get it street driving. So we have to put the dash in, put all the plates in for the dash that mount the radio, all the keypads, all the buttons, all that kind of stuff. We have to put the carpet in. We have to put the doors on. We have to put the hood on, the fenders on, and the bed on. And then we have to like do an alignment and that kind of stuff. In the next video, I will drive this thing home. And that will be the first time it has driven on the street in over 2 years, besides like test driving. V2 of Drift Truck has only ever seen the track. Thank you very much all of you guys for watching. If you do want to support the channel, please check out Patreon. Your last chance to get the I helped build this Drift Truck t-shirt and sticker right now. I do finally have some new merch and stuff coming, trying to be a more responsible YouTuber. If you want to check out Mudwater or Atoto, I'll have links in the description. Yet again, thank you to them for sending out stuff and sponsoring the video. And then of course, the 1 gauge cluster. I'll have a link in the description for that as well. Thanks guys, see you later.